In a few days from now, the Union Finance Minister will present the last full budget ahead of the crucial 2024 Lok Sabha polls. And as the budget comes ahead of the polling season, all eyes are on the Narendra Modi government and its key announcements. With India being the fastest growing economy in the world, the budget isn't just important for Indians, but for those across the world who hope to aspire to be in business with our country. Given the high expectations, what are the key sectors that will be the government's focus this time? Will the middle class finally get the tax relief it's been hoping for a very long time? What will the government announce for India's healthcare sector in this post-COVID era? Will India's startups, fintech and digital sectors get a fillip and a boost? We get some of these expectations forward and speak to those who understand what could happen, what has happened. Joining us on the program at this point in time is Ranjit Mehta, DSG, PhD, Chamber of Commerce. Also joining us on the broadcast is Vineet Singh Marwa, industrialist. Sunil Sanghai, CEO of Nova One Capital, also with us on the program. And last but by no means the least, Dr. Sharat Kohli, senior economist, joins us on the program as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. It's really important to put into perspective what is going to be the priority that India is going to be focusing on in the next couple of years. Dr. Sharat Kohli, I'd like to begin with you. In your expertise, what do you think is going to be that prime agenda for the Union Minister, Finance Minister to focus on? Is it going to be industrial development? Is it going to be capital expenditure? Is it going to be about making India a manufacturing hub? Or should it be, all about votes this time around? Because, there are a number of state as well as the Lok Sabha elections in the fray as well.
Well, Vineet, a very pertinent question and, a very easy answer to your question is all of this. Whatever you said, which is capital expenditure, industrialization, focus on manufacturing, also ensuring that the budget remains populist because 9 state elections and a big general election in the beginning of 24 when it's not going to be a full-fledged budget on 1st of February 2024. It's going to be vote on account or an interim budget. So I think this is the last opportunity for the government to make a point before the electorate and give something to everyone. So I think it will be a budget for sure, which will have little bit, there was a halwa ceremony, a couple of days ago, Vineet. And, while watching that halwa being made by the Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, I was thinking that a little bit of this halwa is going to go to every section of the society. Now, to put this in the perspective, I think the biggest focus, Vineet, is going to remain on the capex, which is the infrastructure development. Last year was 7.5 lakh crores. I'm expecting about 9.5 to 9 lakh crores being allocated for capex. Keeping the fiscal deficit in control to about 6.5% will be the next priority. So that's going to be a very tightrope walk because on one side you will have to ensure that the budget remains populist and there is something for everyone. On the other side, fiscal discipline would be a prime focus. And I think no budget in India, Vineet, can be made by ignoring agriculture. So I'm expecting a substantial allocation like previous budgets on agriculture, whether it is agricultural infrastructure, whether it is food, fertilizers, subsidies, whether it is agricultural marketing. So I think that focus is going to remain. Then PLI is something which I feel has yielded results. The PLI, the production linked incentive schemes in the past for different sectors. So I'm expecting some new sectors to be added to the PLI overall ecosystem. And you will find that these, because the focus is on generating employment and the outcome of PLI has been seen that new investment has come, employment opportunities have been created. So I think the government would like to continue that momentum, would like to maintain that momentum. So PLI scheme, apart from this, Vineet, education, health, skill development, these are the 3 sectors which I feel cannot be missed at all. We've got Corona knocking at our doors via China. Thankfully, it's not here. We have almost gotten over it, if not completely gotten over it. I think health sector would continue to remain focused. Education, without a doubt, and a very important aspect of skill development this time will attract government's attention because if you want to bring these companies from China, the investors are constantly saying that trained manpower and skilled manpower is a challenge. So I think that will be the focus. And in the first part of my interaction for this program, The last thing I would like to mention is defense sector. I think this is one sector, looking at the geopolitical situation around the world and looking at the mischief which our neighbors keep playing. I think we cannot compromise in increasing the allocation on defense sector. So the defense manufacturing, defense imports, overall allocation to defense cannot be missed out. Besides this, startups, women empowerment, all these things will be there. So there's going to be something for everyone. And for the common man, for the middle class, the most important aspect, you said in your opening remarks that whether there is anything going to happen on the tax front. Well, I think you can expect some kind of a pleasant surprise coming either by way of, rationalizing the taxation system, especially with regard to the new regime. The new regime which did not find takers. It was a kind of a flop movie, where only 5 lakh people opted for the new regime, which was brought in with a lot of pomp and show. But then I think there'll be an attempt to make this new regime more attractive, Vineet, this time. So I think middle class may not be directly expecting anything, but indirectly, there's going to be something trickling into your pockets from these sectors as we go forward, Vineet.
Absolutely. Great points, Dr. Kohli. Mr. Mehta, if you can hear me, sir.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Mehta, what do you think the government is going to be focusing on? Is it going to continue its focus and a path on fiscal consolidation? The growth sentiment has augured well for the financial services, the businesses, especially the general insurance sector. But FDI is another area where there have been a lot of demands about, increasing the cap that we have today at 74%.
Yes, thank you, Vineet. In fact, Mr. Kohli had made some very, very important points. But apart from that, I think that we need to do the fiscal consolidation, and we hope that the fiscal deficit will be around 6% of the GDP. And then for export promotion, because this is very important that there has to be some critical interventions for export promotion because we need to increase our export. Then the PLI scheme, I think, needs to be extended to a lot more sectors. And apart from that, because that will give a push to the manufacturing. Then apart from that, I think the new sectors like EV and circular economy needs to be given some, tax benefits. And then if you talk about rural economy, then more money needs to go in the hands of the farmers. We expect that Kisan Nidhi will be extended, and apart from that, we need to increase the subsidy for fertilizers as well. But despite that, one more important point is for the salaried class, because we need to give money in the hands of salaried class. So that's why some tax, rebates for salaried class and women-led enterprises, and for working women, that's what we really expect. And apart from that, Ayushman Bharat scheme needs to be, extended, and more impetus on Ayushman Bharat scheme. And also, one of the important thing is the 15% corporate tax that has been. There's a sunset clause up to March 2024. I think that it needs to be extended so that more companies and startups, they can come into the system, and we can increase investment in Indian manufacturing.
Right, absolutely. Okay. Mr. Sudhir CS, MD and CEO of Indian Money, also joins us on the program. But before that, Mr. Marva, if I can come to you. Okay.
Yeah, good afternoon to everyone.
Mr. Marva, if you can hear me. Mr. Marva?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, is my voice audible?
Yeah, well, expectations as they are to be put out in a couple of days. What do you think is to be expected of the union budget? Fiscal, financial consolidation is something, and inclusion is something that the government has deeply and profoundly focused on in the last few years. You know, they have changed regimes, but the new regime has not really been as galvanizing and attractive as the previous one. Is it going to be some sort of a saving grace exercise for the finance minister? Is she going to, in fact, pay more focus on the voter this time, considering that there is also a political lopsidedness to this budget?
I think, firstly, good afternoon to everyone. This budget is one of the most important budget, I would say, in 9 years. And this has to be because there are a lot of schemes, there are a lot of infrastructure projects, and there's a lot of expectation that industry has it. What 9 years back, nobody was, expecting Atmanirbhar, manufacturing in India, etc., etc. But now the core projects is aligned in next couple of years. So this budget, from industry perspective, I think, firstly, as everyone said, and Dr. Sharad also mentioned fiscal deficit. I think this is the most important thing for the industry, for the nation. We need to reduce. Year on year, it's increasing. We need to either be we need to have self-manufacturing of core components, core products, that raw material. We need to push ourselves beyond assembly. And that's what government is trying to do. But the ground reality in terms of, I always tell that the ground reality is little different. Government is trying its best, but we need that kind of infrastructure that those companies come in and have a raw material factory. So that's happening 2024, 25, 26 is very, very important in terms of electronics, which is the second most import after petroleum in India. Second is exports. India needs to be export-driven country. If we not increase export, as I mentioned, electronics is a huge category across the globe. And we need to have more export-driven products. And for that, there are about 2 companies which are investing in India. I think by Feb, there will be a good news. PM is inaugurating those facilities itself, and that can be a game changer for the country. Last but not the least, infrastructure projects that needs to have timeline. We have roadways, waterways, and railways. All 3 major projects are happening in 23-24. A big announcement, whether it's Delhi-Mumbai, whether it's freight corridor, or whether it's the waterways of transportation. I think we need this. Logistic plays a very vital role in manufacturing. If these things will be sorted, it will give employment. It will, give boost to the economy. And thirdly, domestic manufacturing, which is very, very important. So the FM needs to give us the timelines of these projects. Apart from that, as everybody is expecting tax reduction in income tax, especially, I don't think that is happening. There'll be no direct benefit that will be there. Indirect benefit might be there in tax, in direct and indirect taxes. But apart from that, I feel that there should be a feel-good budget this time around.
Okay, all right. Let's hope for that as well. Mr. Sunil Sangai, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Mr. Sunil, what according to you is going to be the focus this time around? Energy, healthcare, pharma, chemicals, technology, manufacturing. Is this going to be the emphasis on the budget? Infrastructure is obviously big on the agenda for this government, and they have in fact also put a lot of impetus on digitization. The last mile connectivity of banks is also something which the government is going to keep in mind.
Okay. Vineet, I must say one thing, that this is my 40th year watching the budget closely. My first budget where I analyzed it was 1983. One big change which we are seeing now, given the transparency, given the availability of the information, you can pretty much predict the big numbers of the budget, which we used to decipher earlier from the detailed budget document subsequently. So, for example, some of the things which you talked about in terms of the fiscal situation of the country, I think we are more or less clear given the revenue collection numbers and the expenditure numbers which are in the public domain that we should be on track from the fiscal deficit point of view. So 6.3, 6.4 is achievable. That I think will meet the target for the current year. The question is, as you talked about the fiscal discipline for the next year, what should be the projection? In my view, we will feel happy and the bond market will feel good if we see a gliding path, which is what the finance minister had talked about last time, which is to go down to 5.8, 5.9%. This will also give enough money in the hands of the government to really invest in the infrastructure, which they had started last time. 7 lakhs odd crores was invested in the infrastructure, and I think a similar number should be done again this time. In terms of the priority sectors, I think infra is definitely going to be at the top. We may see a little bit of change this time in infra because there's a lot of work has already happened on the road and the port sector and on aviation. I think railway is the sector which has been left out. This time there could be a big focus on the railway side. So this is as far as the sector and the fiscal is concerned. I'll quickly touch upon 2 other areas. One, purely from the commerce point of view. Commercially, you would see that a lot of projects, they get delayed because of the small dispute. And the other counterparty in most of these disputes happen to be the government. I won't be surprised if there is an extension of the policy which last year government experimented with. Is called Vivad Se Vishwas. This was implemented for income tax. If they were to extend the same policy for all contractual obligation, it's one-time settlement given to any dispute rather than going to the court and taking a lot of time and the projects getting delayed. You just settle that once for all with the government. Something like Vivad Se Vishwas, I think that will be a very good beginning if they make that happen. They did that beginning last year with income tax and the other taxation side, the entire tax. I think if they do this for the rest of the commercial thing, that will be a big area. The last point, purely I'm a capital market player, so I'll just touch upon the capital market side. I think we need to again renew our focus on privatization, not disinvestment, privatization. You saw last time Air India was a big success. It was almost like a miracle that government could manage to privatize Air India. We just celebrated first anniversary of that. We have seen the progress, all of us in India, what happened.
Okay.
I think that there was a paper, and I'll close on that. There was a paper 2 years ago in the economic survey in 2020, where there was a full chapter on the methodology of privatization was given. I think they need to dust it, pull that paper again, and implement that. There were 2 different methods which were given. I think one of them will be a big success that will do a privatization in the wholesale, that will enable the government to do the privatization in the wholesale way.
All right.
Big, I think that will be
all right. Let me also rope in Sudhir here. Sudhir, if you're there with us.
Yeah, I'm there.
Sudhir, what's going to be the priority? Is the government going to, in fact, make this a populist budget because, a number of elections are around the corner? Or do you think they will continue to focus on the fiscal consolidation and divestment and reduction of subsidies, considering that we are living in a post-pandemic era?
In fact, that's my concern too, because it should not happen that we plan from election to election, or we think about how the stock market or capital markets will react to the budget. It is more about fixing the fundamentals of the economy. If you ask me, from my expectation perspective, I really want to see some real progress on the NEP side, National Education Policy, because this has been rolled out. So I think it's been 75 years of independence, and it's high time that we get rid of this British education system, once for all. That's not happening. And whatever is being discussed around NEP so far is only theory. I don't see any structural change because a lot needs to be done to make that happen. So that's one area, because my biggest concern here is the fundamental the fundamentals of Indian economy, the $5 trillion economy or $10 trillion economy goal we want to achieve, that's not going to happen just with few MNCs or unicorns. It's going to happen because of every other fundamental aspect. It can be beekeeping, it can be sheep and goat farming, it can be these cloud kitchens or restaurants. But unfortunately, this is not being taught in schools and colleges, and we think people just learn this knowledge on its own. That's not going to happen. So we need to kind of refresh our education system to make this happen and to support and nourish every economic activity to make it a powerful economy in the world. The other area where I see a huge gap is on the farming side. I think the farmers are being currently now, I would say bribed just to support them in election. That should not happen. Unfortunately, all these subsidies or even transferring the 2,000 once in 4 months, I am not in favor of this. This is something which Modi government shouldn't have started. At least now they should think of, structurally fixing it. Should they focus on, like, we were able to quickly react to COVID. We were able to build such a wonderful technological infrastructure to ensure that everyone is vaccinated, everyone is treated during COVID. Then why can't we predict, the same for farm produce? Like today, we are able to predict tsunami is coming. Then why can't we predict what should be produced? What kind of farming should happen? I think that kind of infrastructure has to be built to support the farming community. That in turn can increase the contribution to GDP from the current 19-20% to it can go up to even 26-28%. That kind of structural changes needs to be done today to make India a prosperous country. And one last thing I'll end there, with reference to the current unemployment part. I think today what we are saying here is from LKG to graduation, you study for 17 years and you become outdated. You won't be skilled enough to get a job. Then you be part of Skill India for 3 months. I will get you a job. That's ridiculous. That has to kind of completely stop. Instead, whatever skill development and education can't be too different. See now, whatever NEP is talking about, up to 10th standard, character building, and then the professional development, I think that kind of work has to start in the education system, and then serious discussion should happen around that.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Kohli, if I can come back to you, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, Dr. Kohli, the last time, the grouse was that the capital expenditure was only left at about 2.9%, if I'm not mistaken. This time, experts are hoping that it will be bumped up to 3.5%. But there was also another grudge that, the personal income tax rates were not rationalized by the finance minister. Considering that this has to border on some sort of a popularity index, do you think she's more likely to do it this time around?
Well, Vineet, before I answer your question, I was listening to Sudhir, and his statement reminded me of although we are on an English channel, but you'll have to allow me to speak this out. It's a Ghalib sher. Hazaron ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले, बहुत निकले बजट के प्रावधान फिर भी कम निकले. So it's never going to be enough. First of all, there's going to be a little bit for everybody. First of all,
right.
And the point which you raised, Vineet, just now is, see, the number of actual taxpayers in the country are only 1.5 crore. The people who actually pay tax, you are one of them, by the way. So they're only 1.5 crore. Total number of returns filed 7 crores. But people who pay the tax, so imagine out of 140 crore, we'll probably be overtaking China. We may have already overtaken China because we are not counting ourselves. Is 140 crores. So you can imagine we are about 1% people paying tax. The return filers are 7 crores. So whether giving tax, benefits or tax swaps as a budget announcement, how populist is that move is a question mark, which I can tell you as a tax expert also, because its benefit is not going to reach the masses. First of all, I think the focus, there are 4 engines of, if I go back to macroeconomics, Vineet, 4 engines, government expenditure. There's going to be no dearth. I think 9.5 lakh crore to 9 lakh crores is my projection. It is most likely going to come true. Second engine, private investment, which has not been firing. I remember the finance minister saying, unleash the animal spirit. She told the industrialists, she told the various chambers of commerce. So I think that needs to start firing, and it has started firing a little bit. Third engine is consumption. for which people need money in their pockets. Now, here are the headwinds. And the fourth engine, of course, exports. For the last two engines, export and consumption, we are facing headwinds. The headwind for consumption is that the gap between the rich and the poor, the inequality of income and wealth has widened over the last few decades. No government is to be blamed for that. I mean, it's just been happening because of various government policies. So I think that is where consumption becomes a challenge, and export is facing headwinds from the international economy. I am expecting, Vineet, international economy to sink into recession by the end of this financial year. By the way, I'm not sounding gloomy. I'm just being analytical, because all the interest rates hike, which we've seen in the last year, I think they will show their lagged effect in the times to come. So if the international economy sinks into recession, the export engine is going to face headwinds. So therefore, to make this budget populist, I think the finance minister, for the choices are concerned. Now, before 2017, we used to have budgets. The next day, people used to ask, kya mehenga, kya sasta? Unfortunately, that part is out to GST now. The GST Council decides where do you vary the rates. Only thing mehenga sasta you see is on the front of import duties, where import duties of certain components are reduced or increased. So the prices vary. I think the budget is no more, Vineet, a milestone as far as I'm concerned. For me, budget now comes every Wednesday when the CCEA meets, the Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs. They meet every Wednesday and they take decisions, and we often see press conferences on various economic and fiscal issues. So I think budget, as far as giving hisab kitab to the country, as far as presenting the balance sheet of the country, I think it's a very important milestone. So the Aam Aadmi or the people of this country are only going to get indirect benefits. There is no direct benefit that on 1st of February, the budget is announced. On 2nd of February, my pocket is richer by 5,000 rupees. I really don't see that happening in the budget. I think people have to rationalize and be more prudent about the way they perceive the budget, that the benefits will come indirectly. They'll trickle down from various sectors. I think there's going to be, as I said, there's going to be something for everybody, but then nothing for everybody to be taking into pocket the very next morning, Vineet.
Right, absolutely. Great points there, Dr. Kohli. Mr. Mehta, if I can come to you. Mr. Mehta, if you're there with us?
Yes, of course.
Mr. Mehta, the government has also been very emotional about, propagating and working relentlessly on the ease of doing business. PLI schemes, making labor intensive, opportunities more accessible. Is that also going to be a part of the grand plan that the government has advocated many times in the past, but perhaps has fallen short a couple of steps?
Well, Vineet, I think as far as ease of doing business is concerned, government has been doing a lot, and of course there are areas where still we need to improve. But I think then 42nd position, 63rd position is very good as of today, and our innovation index is also out of 80, it is 40. So I mean we are really working on that. There are a few things that I would like to mention here. One is the green push. We really need to give priority to the greener development. That includes the electric vehicles or circular economy and green hydrogen fuel, because that is going to be a challenge, and we have committed to carbon neutrality by 2047. So all these things are very important. Apart from this, one very important sector, that is real estate sector. So real estate sector today, it needs to be given the infrastructure status. So because real estate is one sector where if the real estate grows, then with that, there are around 265 ancillary industries, they also grow with it. So therefore, for real estate sector, this is extremely important that government, we are hoping that government will look into it. There has been a demand from the real estate industry for a very long time, and also for as Mr. Kohli was talking about the salaried class, because we need to give money in the hands of people. So that is very important. And PLI scheme, I think it has worked wonders. We have seen that needs to be extended to the more sectors. So that will be very good. And I think that ease of doing business is an ongoing journey where they cannot do especially much in the budget, but they have been working on various things on ease of doing business. So I think that overall we can expect that the budget will focus on infrastructure, and that too especially on Gati Shakti projects, because the logistic cost has been a challenge in our country, because it's around 14 to 15%. However, we want to bring it down to around single digit, around 9%. So in that, I think we need to work on that. Probably railways, as one of the speakers he said, will be the focus. Definitely, we also hope that railway will be the focus. Otherwise, the road network has been excellent in our country now. There are many highways, expressways. So there, I think we are doing a lot of things now. Multi-model, integrated multimodal system, logistics system is the need of our. In that, we need to look at our inland waterways. Government has announced around 111 rivers as national waterways. So there, the work needs to be done. A lot of focus has to be there, because
All right. Mr. Marwa?
Yes.
Mr. Marwa, if you're there.
Yes.
Mr. Marwa, how about technology? Crypto and basically, the digitization of whatever is left is also something that the government has been pushing towards. Technology, has always been an agenda, but at the same time, there has been this, this feeling that cryptocurrencies, though they have been tanking off late, have been dealt a bad hand in our country.
I think that's been the case across the globe. I always tell, crypto has always been a pawn scheme. And many big investors haven't invested in crypto. So, and government has dealt really well. I think the kind of startup that came in with very limited knowledge, and a lot of young investors started putting their money. And the kind of RBI steps that they have taken has been, path breaking. And I feel that a lot of youth have survived there, because of this crypto, because this was a trend that was going, and it was going on another direction. As far as technology, I think the breakthrough and the biggest transformation last year has been 5G. And government has announced the kind of, last year I remember FM said in rural areas we will have 5G technology. There will be fiber that will be put across rural. This is a very breakthrough, I would say, in terms of technology. There are a couple of key things that the development that has to come is from rural sector, especially if I talk about technology, consumer durable products, etc. Maximum penetration has to come from tier 2, 3 and rural sector, especially with technology products. If I talk about smart TVs, there are still CRTs, and from CRT there will be a switch to smart TV. For that you need better connectivity. In terms of agriculture, which is the highest contributor, there have been a lot of technology-driven products that have come in. Farmers have, as the panelists mentioned, that what needs to be grown, how education is very, very key. I think now we have satellites which will tell what to grow, what is the weather condition, what will prediction of next 6 months. For all these, we need better connectivity. So government is pretty much focused on it. And in terms of 5G 8, which is very, very important. Right now we have 5G Lite. I think with 8, it's again, that will help you in connectivity of smart products. So as world is going into smart homes, where all your devices will be integrated, including your EV. So for that, we need a better connectivity of 5G. I think in next 2 years, that will be there. and they need to have a very strict policies in terms of allocation of these tenders of auctions of these 5G, because I think 10 years back the line, everybody knows what happened. And it has given a really big, I would say we were pushed 5 years back at least. So all these things, things need to be considered. And next 3 years will be big because of 5G.
All right. Sunil, if you can hear me.
Yes.
Well, do you think there is added pressure on the government on account of a couple of things? The Russia-Ukraine war had also shaken the budget just a few days after it was announced. And secondly, this added reputation of being the 5th largest economy, is that going to put extra pressure on, North Bloc to come up with something which is sustainable as well as impressive? Or do you think they're going to continue to be conservative, knowing that the last couple of years were not as one expected?
Vineet, very good thought. I must compliment you for this question. So as far as the war is concerned, in fact, economically, if you see, of course, the export got impacted, but from the oil side, at least we maintained our pricing. So that actually has done good to us. So from the oil perspective, because we started importing oil, which was a bit cheaper, and we could also manage to pay in rupee. So, so that actually helped us. Your moot point is how is government going to actually react to this? I think there are two dynamics this year. One is this will be probably the last budget before election. Next year is a vote on account, and thereafter the main budget will be July 2024. So there is going to be, to that extent, state election and the center election. So somewhere the political reality will weigh on the mind. Number two, the fiscal discipline. If you see the track record of this government, the first 3-4 years, except during COVID, when they took the liberty, they have been fiscally disciplined. And therefore, I said that I think they would go for the gliding path, and 5.8, 5.9% of the fiscal deficit they would maintain. I don't think they're going to go back again to 6.3, 6.4, because the bond market would react very differently. Given that exports are going to go down, we still have double twin deficit. The currency will come under pressure if the fiscal deficit goes up significantly. So it should be somewhere around 5.8, 5.9 to maintain the bond market. I did want to touch upon the digital point, because you've been repeatedly and very rightly asking that question. So on digitization, and I'll close at that. On digitization, there is a lot has happened, but more and more asset class gets digitized. It becomes easier to deal with. It becomes tradable. So one such asset class is gold. I think somewhere they need to work on digitizing gold. And there's a lot of work has happened in the past. I think somewhere they need to make the last step. And the land and gold, these two asset classes, if they digitize, I think a lot more digital asset will come in the market for trading, and you'll see the volume will go up, and it will also help in terms of ease of doing business, because you should be able to offer your land or your flat or your gold as a security to get the loan for your SME class, and it become that much easier.
Right, great points, Sunil. Sudhir, if you're there with us. Sudhir, if you can hear me. All right, Dr. Kohli, coming back to you.
Yeah.
Dr. Kohli, let's also talk about, the budgeted targeted GDP of 6.4%. It is expected to fall by 10 base points. It's going to be lower. Is that going to imply some sort of, a wider deficit than the government expects, if you compare it with the absolute deficit?
Well, as I said earlier, and as Sunil also said just now, that fiscal discipline has been a priority of this government. I mean, pre-COVID time, we've seen 3.5%, very, very fiscally disciplined budgets, I would say. But I think COVID, I would say, changed it all. And not just for India. I mean, across the world, some of the world's most developed economies, they saw their fiscal deficits going haywire. So I think fiscal deficit, whereas it would be a concern, because I think the viewers should know that when you fiddle with the fiscal deficit, the country's ratings, the elbow room for more investments, the tax imposition of new taxes. There are a lot of things which get affected. But the fact of the matter is that this being the last full-fledged budget, which we keep repeating, I think even if it goes little off the track, I really don't think it should be a matter of big concern, because there are some of the more developed countries than us, fully developed countries, across the world, whose fiscal deficit targets have totally been gone out of track. They have been thrown out of the window, actually. So I think whereas the priority of the government would be to remain fiscally disciplined, but then even if it goes at the cost of development, at the cost of poverty alleviation, at the cost of generating more employment, and at the cost of building a very solid and a very strong infrastructure, I think even if the fiscal deficit has to be compromised a little bit, I really don't think it should be a matter of concern for the government and for the people at large. Maybe the long term, government always has, if it comes back to power, which most likely it is going to, I don't want to make a political statement here, but if it comes back to power in 2024, then the July 24 budget, it will take the corrective action to make sure that the fiscal deficit doesn't go out of hand. Plus, I think we should keep in mind, Vineet, a very important aspect, that the geopolitical situation in the current scenario, this is going to have a direct impact on budget making, is so dynamic. Things across the world, the equations are changing so fast. What if in this year we see, some kind of conflict in the Chinese, on the South China Sea? What if we see something happening in the Korean Peninsula? What if something happens in Israel and Tehran front? So I think things are very, very dynamic, and this would be counting on the minds of the budget makers, and they will make sure that provisions are kept for that, and you don't end up cementing everything. You don't need to cement your policies right now because of this dynamic situation. That's what I feel. So I think there would be some kind of flexibility kept in the budget for the times to come. As I said, you might see mini budgets in the months to come by way of, press conferences, by way of a Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs meeting, by way of government deliberations. You might see more of budget kind of announcements coming later. So therefore, I think we should keep in mind that this is just another milestone as far as the government fiscal roadmap is concerned, Vineet.
Okay, all right. Mr. Marwa, let's talk about the MSME sector as well. It contributes 33% towards the GDP, employs roughly around 120 million people, but yet they've complained of a number of issues predominant, to the GST regime as well as other, benefits that should be availed to them considering the contribution.
I think GST, I would say I will start with the GST first. And as Dr. Sharad mentioned, mini budgets. I think in terms of government is just, as I told you in my beginning statement, it's a feel-good budget. I think there are a lot of, I agree, every month government is doing a press conference, and they are, giving all the information and what are the steps that they've taken. They are discussing that. So in terms of most of the tax system and especially GST Council, what are the steps, collection, etc., has been discussed over there. Coming to MSME sector, yes, the contribution is huge to the country, and there is a lot of expectations, and from MSMEs, there are a lot of industries which have moved on also, and they have become a larger contributor. GST, I start with, there were a lot of hiccups when GST came in. I think today picture has completely changed. It's a much the tax has been much simplified. I think the portal has been a very, very user friendly. And the kind of benefit that these MSMEs are getting is phenomenal. Whether it's refund, I know when it started, refund was a very huge problem. That has been sorted out. There has been little bit problems in terms of the duration and the kind of linkage. I feel there has to be some sort of action that government now needs to take, because especially if I talk about electronics, there has been a lot of misdeclaration that's been happening, and I'm being very vocal about it. I've had meetings with officials that the last mile that GST needs to connect and the action that has to be taken, I think government needs to be proactive on that. And there should be more in terms of judicial action that needs to be taken. Strict laws has to come in, because there has been cases where lot of refunds, lot of fake bill has been introduced. It's a major problem to the economy. And I have never seen in the last 3 to 4 years some strict laws coming on that. Apart from when it was constituted, same laws has been implemented. So this needs to get changed. Traders and industrialists should feel that there is something, in terms of if any wrongdoing has been found. Apart from that, as I told you, from assembly, we need to shift to core manufacturing of raw material. I think MSMEs will get maximum benefit when backward integration will start increasing. That's where, the skill is based. Today, we are assembling any sector, it's automobile, electronics, a lot of components are imported from different countries. And the competition, it's like a commodity. Everybody knows the pricing. It's how much conversion you put down, and that's you're just giving your margins away to the end consumer. So if India needs to increase and maximize, and this sector, manufacturing sector, has to grow, the formula is that India needs to have more raw material component factories. And yes, Sunil ji mentioned about PLA scheme. I need to just add on PLA, how this PLA was introduced, and if government, what are the intentions of government? So government had banned televisions for CBU. That's how you encourage industries to manufacture, have more factories. Then government banned air conditioner, CBU of air conditioner, a complete build unit. Then they started encouraging and gave a scheme of PLI in air conditioners. After that, refrigerator, again they banned. And then that's how, we have requested that PLA should be there in washing machine, refrigerators and television as well. But that's how you encourage. They're doing it. But as I mentioned, overnight things can't happen. And overnight FDAs will not happen. Company comes in. We had multiple discussions with Koreans, Japanese, Americans. When they came in, the ground realities were a little different.
All right. Okay. Sunil, do you think that the biggest problem that the MSMEs face is perhaps the credit gap which exists today? A lot of, the micro entrepreneurs are compelled, to borrow money from unofficial sources. And if that is a problem that can be taken care of in this union budget, then perhaps, it could extend to infrastructure. It could also generate jobs, which in the first place is a problem that the government has faced.
You hit the nail on its head. You look at, we all know MSME is the core, is the backbone to any economy, right? The large corporate have their own ability to raise money from the banks or from the capital market. They can go domestic, international capital market, and they can raise money. As far as you and I as a consumer is concerned, now we have money available on one click, right? You buy a refrigerator and the question will be said, okay, ask that do you want to pay in installment? And your account will be credited and you get the money without any question being asked, right? So your KYC, everything is taken care of. The mid sector, which is MSME, which is your backbone, they have to struggle. They need to provide security. They need to provide everything else in order to go and convince the bank to lend money to them. One small area if we take care of, the security for MSME is typically the personal belongings which they have, with the personal assets which they have. Either that's a house or it's a land or it's a gold, those kind of things. If we digitize the documentation for these assets, it'll become that much easier it'll become uniform, first of all. It'll become that much easier for a bank to accept them as a security. It'll become easier for the MSME, the borrower to transfer it as a security without any tax and borrow money at a short notice, right? So what we need to really work on the mechanism by which the MSME is funded, and it's really a big area, and that's the one area where we need to really do some work. We have I think there are several representations have been made to Reserve Bank of India also on that. And I'm sure given the focus on digitization, which you talked about earlier, the last budget also focused a lot on the digitization. This could be one area which can be dealt with in the budget this time.
Right, absolutely. Great points. Dr. Kohli, if I can come to you.
Yeah.
The MSMEs definitely, contribute a large chunk towards the GDP, as I mentioned earlier as well. But, priority lending and the lack of introduction of a credit guarantee platform or program has worked against this sector. And, a lot of these MSMEs in rural areas turn out to be less competitive because of the lack of infrastructure. They also, are not organized in the fashion that they should be. Do you think this is an opportunity to fix that part?
Well, it's a Herculean task, Vineet, because to reach the remote corners of the country and to make sure, if I count the total number of small businesses in the country, Vineet, I have the data off the cuff. It's about 6.6 crores. So 6.6 crores small businesses, most of them micro. And when we say micro, they employ 1 or 2 people. I think to reach out to each one of them is a challenging task indeed. And I think during COVID, the emergency credit line guarantee scheme has tried to reach out to the MSMEs who were already borrowing. But I think we should not forget that around these MSMEs, when we say micro, small and medium, and this medium reminds me that the whole of the middle class population, this is weaved around the MSMEs because they come from the the middle class families. The size of the middle class population right now is about, as per my count, is 45 to 50 crores. Out of 130 to 40 crore of us, there are about 45 to 50 crore of middle class. And I think the biggest challenge, if I was the finance minister, Vineet, the biggest challenge for me is that you are in the top 10% population if you earn 25,000 rupees a month. So you can imagine, in a country when I was young, Vineet, and I remember I was in class 5 and I had my Hindi class. I was not very good at Hindi. And I came home and I asked my mother that I've been given an essay to write on India. Those times, I'm talking of 40 years from now, going back. And she made me sit on my study table. She said, okay, I'll help you out. And the first sentence she wrote is Bharat ek garib desh. I can never forget that sentence. So my question is that the challenge in any budget is that you have to alleviate poverty and increase the incomes. People need to start earning because of 10% of population, which means about 13 to 14 crore people, only earn 25,000 and above. 1% of the population own 40% of the wealth of the country. I think these skewed numbers, they should be the focus of the budget, that how to, India doesn't reside in Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, Chennai. There is move out 25 kilometers from a metro city and you move from India to Bharat. I think that borderline between India and Bharat needs to be eliminated. The opportunities for the poor, the opportunities for the underprivileged, they need to flow smoothly. I think the challenge and the focus of the budget, Vineet, should be on this, apart from the factors which I discussed just now, Vineet.
Right, absolutely. And Mr. Marva, let us also not forget, the elephant in the room when it comes to emergencies, when it comes to contingencies that India had thrown in the past couple of years. The healthcare system is also limited. It's been tested when COVID came by, and that is a sector which definitely is going to be important to the governance, especially in rural areas.
Absolutely, Vineet. I think two sectors that needs to should be taken care is healthcare and education. I think earlier they were the focus was more on in terms of infrastructure and the amount of spendings that we do because of the border situation in India. I think we need to now shift those budgets to education. It is very, very important and education across the globe is changing. And healthcare. Now coming to healthcare, there are two things. If we go, as Sharaji mentioned, if we go about like 25 kilometers beyond any of these metro, we don't find good healthcare system. We don't have good trauma centers right now. We're getting very good highway system, but the kind of health facility that's there around is not so good. And everyone saw what happened in COVID situation. I think government has taken some steps. They have, came up with aims, but I think the rural sector that needs to be focused. The kind of 40-year-old program that has held, we need to upgrade those dispensaries into hospitals. We need to have more emergency centers across the country, and despite of second wave, after that I haven't seen some drastic changes, and I've been to the ground level. I've visited a couple of villages, but I haven't seen that kind of changes. Government needs to take very quick action in all those to counter if there is some sort of COVID situation comes again. And education, this has always been since last 9 years. I've been requesting we need to have a better education system. The kind of dropouts that we have from 10th to 12th is phenomenal. And that's why we need to reduce. The recent figures, I don't have it, but we need to have universities and more graduation diploma courses, and we need to have different fields as well.
Right, you're absolutely right. Yeah, we've run out of time. Sunil, quick thoughts from you. Healthcare is definitely of great importance to the government. A large chunk of the medical equipment which is used in our country is imported. The duties and the tariffs are very, very high. This is also an opportunity for the government to focus when it comes to Atmanirbharta in healthcare as well.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I'll deal with medical equipment. It's called medtech industry, and if you see the medtech industry, bulk of them, even small part and the large part, all of them bulk of it is imported. You have 3M and Johnson & Johnson, they are the ones who actually dominate, and the bigger ones, Siemens and GE of the world, they're really dominant. We are hardly doing any manufacturing. So that's an area which should definitely take a priority now. Just to deal with education and healthcare, I have one suggestion, and very quickly I'll articulate that. We got 766 districts, and we need to move away from the city and take care of the smaller part, which we talked about, Bharat. If we just roll out the central institutions, AIIMS, IIT and IIM in each of these districts, the influx of the population which moves to the city will stop. The investment in the infrastructure in the city, that will go down. The villages which are becoming ghost, which will develop, and we will be able to actually provide these services at the ground level there in each of the district. And I'm sure state government will be happy to allocate the land, and the cost will come down, and this will actually help in terms of rolling out all these three services which the center can actually implement directly, because these three institutions are directly managed by the central government, and it will be an easy rollout, meeting the requirement of the healthcare, higher education, and also the medical services.
So it's a Herculean task by the government, and small steps have been taken in the past, and that is exactly what also will be recommended here, because obviously we are living in an era where uncertainty plays a big part of any macro plan.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.